Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, Perun here, and in today's video we're looking at a video called The Next BTS, Why They Fail Every Time. I think it's going to be a really interesting video because there's a lot of groups that want to achieve what BTS has achieved, right? As always, the original video is down in the description, and if you'd like to check out my music reaction breakdowns for BTS, you can check out Patreon as well. And yeah, let's get into it and check this one out.
In 2019,
Alright, here
BTS
comes.
were already well established as the biggest group in the world. 2 years after their American TV debut had already passed, and their success only kept growing. The name BTS was associated with some of the biggest names in the music industry. This helped K-pop grow as a whole, but BTS were the only ones in the spotlight in the Western music industry. The K-pop industry noticed this, so SM, one of the biggest entertainment agencies in South Korea, had the idea to create a supergroup formed of the 7 most popular members of some of the most popular K-pop groups.
Oh, I think I've heard about this.
As the Avengers of K-pop. This way, their success was supposed to be guaranteed, and their chances of becoming the next BTS were bigger than the chances of the hundreds of other K-pop groups.
So I don't know a lot about the Avengers of K-pop, Super M. Were they trying to kind of replicate the kind of same like BTS style?
Also trying to level with the success of BTS. This supergroup did everything they could. Their label SM Entertainment partnered with the US label Capitol Records. Their debut stage was in Hollywood. Their TV debut was on the Ellen DeGeneres Show. They also performed on Jimmy Kimmel. Their premiere event was in Los Angeles and had American press. Their debut album had 8 different versions, 1 regular version and 1 individual edition for each of the 7 members. And they started an American tour right away. All of this promotion helped them get a #1 on the Billboard 200 albums charts, making them the second Korean act to top the chart, only after BTS. This made Los Angeles Times and entertainment companies predict that this group was going to be the next BTS. But there was something weird. Outside of the K-pop sphere, no one really knew about them. They were everywhere, and their album was #1, but the songs of the album were nowhere to be found on song charts like the Billboard Hot 100, or even in the top 20 of the bubbling under Hot 100. And right after their album debuted at #1, it disappeared from the top 10. Their second album had a similar story. The Avengers of K-pop performed in American TV shows and even partnered with Marvel for limited edition merchandise.
That is a lot of money spent on advertisements and promoting the group. A lot of money.
But their album debuted at #2 with none of its songs charting on the Hot 100. This was only one of the multiple failed Next BTS attempts. Whether they are Korean girl groups or Korean boy groups, year after year, Korean entertainment agencies and American music labels have been trying to replicate BTS's success.
You guys are the biggest boy band in the world.
There
it's
they
not
are.
a secret that the K-pop industry has been studying BTS's popularity for years. An industry official said, right now, the biggest concern in the K-pop industry is who will make the next BTS.
In the world.
It's not a secret that the K-pop industry has been studying BTS's popularity for years. An industry official said, right now, the biggest concern in the K-pop industry is who will make the next BTS. So all attention is focused on the performance of the United States. The entertainment agency's main strategy to set the narrative that their group is the...
I don't think there's gonna be another like BTS for a long time. That's kind of difficult to replicate, and the following that they have is incredible. So
BTS is
I
to
don't know if that can be like replicated anytime soon.
That BTS previously had. But since this is almost impossible, they go out of their way to find strategies in which they can be named together, hoping that people won't bother to know the context. One example is album sales. BTS are the second group only after the Beatles to get 3 #1 albums in less than a year. This phrase was everywhere.
And they just became the first group since the Beatles to earn
Has such a catch to it, right?
in less than
Since
a
the
year.
Beatles,
This is a very
man.
hard record for K-pop or for any artist to achieve, but getting at least 1 #1 album may be enough to be named in the same conversation as BTS. So although these groups cannot have an organic #1 album because of lack of demand in the US, they still can sell multiple versions of the same album with different pictures that fans can collect at a very small price. This will lead to a lot of album sales, but not song sales or streams. So the normal thing for a real #1 album is to have at least
Good
one
songs.
top 10 song or multiple songs on the Billboard Hot 100, because
Damn.
if an album is popular, then at least one song of the album has to be popular. This doesn't happen with K-pop albums because they are not actually big in the US, but that doesn't matter. These groups technically have a number 1 or a number 2 album, so entertainment agencies will use this to pretend like they will be the next BTS because they have the same achievement. Another example, BTS are one of the few artists who can sell out stadium tours these days. This is something extremely hard even for the biggest Western artists you can imagine. So K-pop's strategy to pretend like they also have a stadium tour is to have at least one concert in places like the Bank of California Stadium, which doesn't actually have a stadium capacity. It has an arena capacity of only 20,000 people. A stadium is just part of the arena venue's name. An actual stadium tour, like BTS's tours, is composed of multiple concerts in the stadiums with 40,000 to 80,000 seats in each concert. So thanks to media play, other K-pop groups can be named as the next BTS because they are supposedly having stadium tours when they are actually performing
like
in arenas, theaters, and one arena venue that has a stadium in its name. These type of strategies are very common. Whenever BTS does something, the K-pop industry focuses on that something. This is why K-pop groups started submitting their work to the Grammys only after BTS started getting nominations to the Grammys. And not only that, but if BTS is nominated to Best Pop Duo Group Performance, the media's attention is on Best Pop Duo Group Performance. So K-pop groups submit their songs for this category. One of the latest BTS Grammy nominations is for Best Music Video. This is a new achievement for them because they've never been nominated for this category. So I can assure you that next year, K-pop groups will start submitting their music videos for this category, and the media will drop predictions saying that they will also be nominated because the industry only goes after what BTS already has.
UK pop, interesting.
All of these were the next BTS K-pop attempts. But what about Western attempts? In a video I made some time ago, I went through the multiple attempts of creating the next big boy band after One Direction. And these attempts came around 2016.
Yeah, One Direction was like the boy band from the UK, right?
BTS were rising to popularity in the West and were named the biggest group in the world. However, I don't think these new boy bands were trying to be the next BTS because BTS were fairly new and BTS were seen as a fluke or a weird phenomenon that will last probably 1 or 2 years. But year after year passed by and the multiple new Western boy bands, which were backed by the biggest Western music labels, kept failing trying to surpass BTS. And not even the biggest comebacks of popular old boy bands could compete against BTS. So in 2019, Simon Cowell, the creator of One Direction, had the amazing idea of creating a new British group that would become bigger than BTS, and said that his UK pop group will destroy the K-pop group which is ruling the world.
What? I've never heard of this.
Find either the biggest boy group in the world or the biggest girl group in the world. We've done it before. We're going to do it
Simon, what are you
again.
talking about?
Right now, K-pop, you could argue, is ruling the world. Now, it's time for UK pop.
So
What?
his
What?
show The X Factor had a special season called
Simon
The X
Cowell,
Factor The Band, dedicated to group
I've
together a
not
boy
heard
band
of that.
and a girl band. These two groups would then compete against each other, and the winner would get a record deal with Simon Cowell's label Psycho Music, release their debut album, and become the biggest group in the world. In the end, the boy band Simon created ended up losing the show, not signing to Psycho Music and breaking up a few months after their creation. The girl
I
group
kinda
did get a
saw where
record
that was
deal
going.
with Psycho Music, but they never released a debut album, and one of the 6 members left the group to pursue a solo career. In 2022, they left
You're good on
Psycho
her.
Music, signed to Warner Records, and another member left the group. Another attempt of creating the next BTS failed once again.
The American Music Awards.
Yeah,
goes to-
that is incredibly hard to replicate. Like,
The latest attempt of finding the next BTS joined the forces of the K-pop industry and the biggest representative of the Western music industry, Billboard. The K-Billboard Awards was an event organized by the K-Culture Festival and Billboard, which attempted to highlight the biggest achievements of K-pop artists based on the Billboard charts. The organizer said, "This is part of our mission to find the next BTS. We will strictly adhere to Billboard's point system."
everyone is chasing that kind of dream of replicating what BTS done, right? I mean, they are the biggest.
But do you know what
in
happens
the
when
world,
you
so-
adhere to Billboard's point system? BTS wins. So they also named the second place as the winners, continuing their
Oh.
strategy to associate K-pop groups with BTS, even when the gap between first and second place is abysmal.
There's been so many
Damn.
legends to walk through this door.
Why they
There's been
always
Frank
fail?
Sinatra, the
This video is
Beatles,
great.
Dean Martin, and now we have, wait for it, the Avengers of K-pop.
SM's founder, Lee Sung-man, was the one with the idea of creating the Avengers of K-pop, and this was one of his multiple attempts of creating the next BTS.
My boy
but
Mark.
since he
I
fails
love
every
Mark, man.
time, at some point, the media started naming him as the mastermind behind BTS, when he literally had zero relation to the group. He was actually managing groups that tried to directly compete against BTS. But he is not the only one. The three biggest K-pop labels are pushing the idea that their groups are actually the next BTS. SM
Interesting.
had the Avengers of K-pop, but since they are on a hiatus, he's
Super
now
M.
pushing a 4-member girl group to become the future of K-pop. YG is using media play and allegedly buying awards in small American award shows to pretend like his biggest girl group is on the same level as BTS. And most recently, JYP had Korean media suddenly releasing multiple articles naming his group as the next BTS.
Why are they
I don't
targeting
think
that?
this is a coincidence. This all seems like premeditated media play. But how is it that they keep failing, even with
I don't think they need to compete. Like, Blackpink has their own fandom, and like, I don't see why the media would want to push them into that next BTS narrative. You know, Blackpink is already great. Why do they have to like go into that direction? I wonder if that's just the media
all
or
the media play they can get. I found some common factors in their
Interesting.
failed attempts. First is lack of originality. If BTS releases an album trilogy about self-love and acceptance, K-pop starts singing about self-love and acceptance.
As I began to love myself.
If BTS releases a song like Fake Love, K-pop groups immediately release songs with a dark aesthetic. BTS stops the dark aesthetic and releases Boy With Love.
Really?
K-pop groups release songs with a pink aesthetic. BTS releases a song titled Life Goes On. K-pop releases Life Is Still Going On. BTS releases Smooth Like Butter. K-pop releases Sweet Like Mango. And these are just trivial examples that don't really matter much. The key here is lack of originality. K-pop does the
Interesting.
same thing over and over again, and that is not necessarily a bad thing for a K-pop audience. But if you keep trying to make this work in a Western audience, you will keep failing. Number 2 is trying to be unique in the wrong aspect. When the next
Okay.
BTS attempts actually try to be original, they sometimes try to be original in everything but the music. An example of this is SM's attempt of creating a metaverse group with 4 members who are real people and 4 members who are their virtual alter egos. So producers are not trying to find
Interesting.
unique, interesting artists with new, rare, or just not so common musical elements. They are trying to create groups that are different in aspects that music fans don't care about. I personally think that the Avengers of K-pop idea was not the worst idea ever.
Yeah,
But they focused
I
too
kinda
much on
like that.
everything except for the music. SM tried to sell the idea that this group's unique aspect was that, unlike BTS and the others, the members had a manly man aesthetic. But who cares if they look like masculine men with black clothes who are called the Avengers when their music is this? By the way, if you like this song, it's completely fine. I'm just saying that I think we can all understand why it didn't succeed
damn.
in America. So once they
Shots
failed,
fired,
they
eh?
left the manly man aesthetic and went back to the first mistake. Right after BTS released their first English single Dynamite
Why
and
didn't
sang
they stick
about
with that?
shining through the city and being like Diamond,
I like
this
the
group
Avengers.
changed Diamond for Gold and sang in English about shining bright like gold. And don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with following music trends, but if that's all you do, you won't stand out, especially when you're trying so hard to
Real and
create
true.
the next BTS. Number 3 is the lack of raw talent. Pretty people singing with loud pre-recorded vocals or playback are almost a rule in K-pop, but that won't work if you want to be the
Damn,
next
she's
BTS
spitting
and
facts.
you're debuting in America.
We holla. 두렵지 않는 너 희토하던 광각들이 점점 너를 구축할 이유가
K-pop is prioritizing looks way more than it should be. YG admitted that his biggest girl group was just a prettier version of a previous girl group. He said, "If you ask me to distinguish my new group from my last group, I want to say I did not try to make them different. If you ask me what differentiates them from other girl groups, I will say I did not form them with that in mind. I tried to make a girl group like I did with my previous girl group, but this time I wanted the girls to look pretty too. I won't pretend like looks don't matter in the Western music industry, because they do, but good looks and a nice aesthetic is not enough. Korean labels need to start prioritizing at least a little of talent and passion for music." Finally, I think the next BTS attempts keep failing because music labels are obsessed with control and being the main character. I think they want to control all of their group's steps because the CEOs want to be recognized for finding and paying the best songwriters in the industry instead of encouraging their interpreters to be artists. I think this is why JYP had articles putting his picture.
That's one of the things, right? When we were watching the guide to BTS, the owner of BTS, he just let them do their own thing, write their music, right? And I feel like a lot of the owners try to put their own self, their own ego ahead and be like, "Yeah, I made this," you know, instead of like they made it, you know.
On his group's articles, so he can be called the mastermind behind the next BTS.
I think that's what
this
it
is also why SM was everywhere saying that he was the one with the idea of creating the Avengers of K-pop and the Metaverse group.
I want to take the time to acknowledge a very special guest we have in the building. We have producer Mr. Suman Lee.
That's not what BTS's label did, and that's not what Namjoon did as the leader of BTS. They let the group shine as a group. With that said, I don't think it's necessarily bad that the producers behind a group explain the process of creating a group, but the focus should be on the group and their music, not on the CEOs. Number 5 is not accepting that BTS are way too out of their league. This person tweeted, "It all boils down to these labels refusing to accept that BTS is not just a K-pop group anymore. They are talked about in actual pop conversations. They have solidified a legacy. They are literally worldwide A-listers, global artists. Music labels make every move based off the fact that, well, they are a K-pop group, so the world must all love and want more K-pop. And that's just not how it works. That's why they keep failing." So I guess if you as a producer or record label really want to create or be the mastermind behind the next BTS in terms of popularity, you need to look for very unique artists that are not necessarily
I feel like the person that made this video is a bit harsh like on the other groups. Like they have really good music too. Obviously not
part of a group like BTS.
You know?
I may be saying complete nonsense now because I'm not a record producer or anything like that, but the actual record producers and analysts have been studying BTS closely for years and they keep failing. So this is just what a simple music fan like me would do. Number 1, if you want to create the next big artist in America, you need to first focus on the music. Looks are great, but every single K-pop group has good looks. You need to step up your music game. You cannot debut in America with a song about being the best at jopping.
You have to tell me what jopping means.
Yeah, what is jopping?
Yes.
And popping.
Jopping, of course. Why did I ask?
Number 2, and this also applies to Western attempts. Don't be mediocre and lazy. The reason why every single attempt of the next big boy band failed in 2016 and 2017, and also the reason why the comeback of all boy bands failed too, was because they were extremely mediocre when compared to BTS. This is the main reason why it's highly unlikely to find the next BTS, because BTS did not only set the bar extremely high for K-pop, but also for the Western music industry. So stop comparing yourself to BTS because that is a game that you are going to lose. Number 3, and this is for music labels. Be patient. The Beatles, Michael Jackson, Queen, and BTS did not become the biggest artists in the world with their first release. Don't try to force or fake a big debut when it really isn't.
That's another thing, right? BTS was not really at the top until like few years later when they debuted, right? So
big debut. And more
you can't
importantly,
force
don't
anything.
be like Simon Cowell or SM and abandon your group when the media play didn't work. Small debuts are not necessarily a bad thing. The ones trying to create the next BTS are some of the biggest labels. So instead of spending all this money in fake achievements and media play, try to spend this money in keeping your group alive as long as you
I
can.
think it's better to build a strong foundation, you know, and then slowly rise to the top instead of being at the top, having a weak foundation and they're just disbanding.
So they can musically and artistically grow. Number 4, be different. If you really want to have a big debut like Olivia Rodrigo or Justin Bieber, look for what the music industry is missing, not what it already has. When Olivia Rodrigo debuted, the industry didn't have a Disney star sing about her love life for years. And when Justin Bieber debuted, he became the first teenage heartthrob born on the internet. Find something different.
He was doing covers,
BTS's
right?
level of artistry takes years to replicate. BTS did not have a huge debut in South Korea, but when they entered the Western music industry, they had already perfected for more than 4 years artistic elements that the Western music industry didn't see before. In other words, to find the next BTS, you need to stop trying to find the next BTS. You may think that right now is the right time to create the next BTS, because BTS are not releasing music as a 7-member group for the next 2 years. But the fact that they are still planning to release a lot of music during this time is not a good sign to continue creating groups that resemble them. The Backstreet Boys took a 4-year hiatus, and during this time, no other boy band could become as big or bigger than them. And BTS's level of performance and music, as well as worldwide popularity, is even bigger and harder to replicate than the one of the Backstreet Boys. This is how hard it will forever be to replicate BTS. Even if the BTS members release no music at all during this time or any other time in the future, that actually leaves K-pop at disadvantage in the Western music industry, because all the hype around K-pop is born with an interest in BTS. K-pop's achievements in the West are not K-pop's achievements, they are BTS's achievements. So if BTS stops being BTS, K-pop will definitely be bigger than what they were before 2017, but they will go back to being a niche interest, because the ones giving K-pop the title of mainstream are BTS only. Without them, K-pop has no legendary records in the West. I know it's hard to believe because of all the media play that exists trying to devalue BTS's popularity and art, but musical acts like BTS are once in a lifetime. We don't know if the next big thing is even going to be a group from South Korea or a boy band from the UK. By the way things are going on right now, there are more chances of having the next big legendary artist come from a Spanish-speaking country, and there are way more chances
we're gonna get some boy band from Poland, I believe. Could you imagine? P-pop.
This legendary artist to be a soloist, but that would only happen by promoting the artist as their own authentic self. And this is something that BTS is doing right now while they release solo albums. So it looks like the next BTS is BTS, not only because their comeback in 2025 will be extremely hard to match, but also it looks like all the K-pop categories in Western award shows will go for BTS members either way. Even in South Korea, J-Hope, the only BTS member who has released a solo album until now, already has 6 award nominations, including Song of the Year and Artist of the Year, against himself in BTS. So stop trying to find the next BTS, because number 1, BTS is still here, and number 2, you're setting your groups up for failure. Music labels, K-pop fans, and the media need to wake up and stop humiliating their groups like this. Let your performers become artists. Let them be small so they can grow, and let them grow organically, because that was BTS's story, and they did not become the next somebody. They became the first BTS.
사실 저는 그 제2
Damn, okay, that was actually a hard line there.
제2의 뭐뭐가 좀
The next somebody.
않는다고 생각을 해요. 저희도 이제.
Yeah, that was a super good video. Yeah, I don't think there's gonna be a next BTS per se, and I don't really know why a lot of like these media groups are pushing like Blackpink and other groups into the next BTS. Like the girl said in the video, you shouldn't be trying to be the next someone. You should be trying to be the first whatever you become, right? But yeah, that was a very insightful video actually.